Um, Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm obviously new. All I'm really gonna be doing on this channel is reading books. I might talk some, but so far all I'm really gonna be doing is reading books. I might get a Twitch later on, go live and stuff, but that's later on. So today's gonna be the first day of reading. And the book I'm reading is a chapter book. It's called The Roar by Clayton. So let's just get started on this. Chapter 1. The Girl Who Knew the Secret. The sun was setting over the Atlantic, and as it ran like the molten gold into the waves, a girl in a pod fighter ripped through the scene like graffiti sprayed across the landscape painting. For a few startled moments, the sun and the sea trembled. Ellie flew fast and low, with her eyes fixed on the northern horizon. In the gunner's seat behind her was a capuchin. Sorry, I suck at pronouncing things, so I'm just gonna try my best. Okay, so in the gunner's seat behind her was a capuchin monkey called Puck, whose brows fidgeted while he ate popcorn and admired the gun controls. Puck was glad to be out of his room with new things to look at. He didn't know they were running away or how much danger they were in, but there was no doubt in Ellie's mind. When Mal Gorman found out they were gone, he would want to slice them like Parma ham and mice them into space dust. But I won't let him, Ellie whispered. And anyhow, he's got to catch us first. As they flew to the north into the darkness, leaving the warmth of the sun behind them, Ellie wondered whether her parents had kept her clothes. It was over a year since Mal Gorman had kidnapped her. She knew he'd told them she was dead. No, she thought sadly. They've probably thrown them away. For a moment she wondered whether they recognized her. Perhaps they'd be frightened to see her. Maybe she'd knock on the door and they'd look at her if she were a stranger and tell her to go away. As Ellie considered this end to her journey, she felt panic rise like vomit in her throat, and she accelerated until she was flying so fast she saw nothing but ribbons of half-lighted reflected on the water. The pod fighter ripped through the air, leaving sonic scars in its wake, and she blinked away a tear. It dipped slightly to the left, and a wingtip clipped on the crest of a wave and reacted as if it hit a rock. Boom. For a split second, she thought she had lost it as the pod fighter threatened to spin off in the horizontal cartwheels into megaton of wall of water. Sorry. Frag, she cursed, hot in the face as she struggled to correct her mistake. Another lapse of concentration like that one she would... Another lap of concentration like that one she really was dead. She would know by now that crying didn't help. She'd cried a lake of tears since Mal Gorman kidnapped her. It hadn't spirited her home. Only cool logic and determination would do that. She slowed down, exhaling her panic, and checked the coordinates in her visor. Then with a roar, she sliced chunks out of the waves. The pod fighter shot across the equator and into the turbulent sky of the northern hemisphere. "We're going home," said Ellie, "and not even Mal Gorman can stop us." It was 3 o'clock in the morning in London when Mal Gorman was awakened by the news that Ellie had escaped. He was supposed to be on vacation, the first vacation he'd taken for over a year, but instead of having a relaxing time in his expensive hotel, he was pacing up and down with his slippers on the wrong feet and his temples throbbing. He felt too old to be chasing a 12-year-old girl in a stolen pod fighter across the planet. The circular comm over his right ear glowed while he was talking to one of his men. "What time did she go?" "We don't know, sir," the man replied sheepishly. "Nobody seems to know exactly when she left." "Why not?" Gorman bellowed, his gray eyes threatening to pop out of their bony sockets. "What was going on up there? Where were you all doing in the cannon in the officers' mess? Having a slumber party?" "No, sir," the man replied. "She just slipped out without anyone noticing." "Slipped out of a locker room on a spaceship?" "Yes, sir," the man replied. We've been trying to figure out how she did it, but we don't have any security footage because she destroyed it before she left. Somehow she managed to break into every pod fighter on the strip and plant a virus in their flight systems so we couldn't follow her. Unbelievable, Gorman snarled. You bunch of bumbling credits. How could a 12-year-old girl escape from several hundred soldiers from a space station in orbit around the Earth? I don't know, sir, mumbled the man, but we've got the programmers and the pod fighters, and half are working again. We're ready if you need us. We can be there in 10 minutes. The man hesitated, then asked, Does she know the secret? Yes, Gorman replied heavily, but I don't think that's the reason she ran away. I recently told her that her parents believe she's dead, and I think that might have upset her. Did she take the monkey? Yes, sir. Oh, no. Gorman felt a pain in his chest as he considered the consequences of Ellie reaching home with a live, black-caped capuchin monkey. He sat down heavily on the bed and fumbled around under the lamp for his Everlife pills. He was 108 years old. He needed them. What do you want us to do, sir? Mal Gorman thought for a moment, running a papery hand over his last strands of brittle gray hair. He didn't want to kill Ellie. After all, he'd spent a year training her, and the other 2 children he'd kidnapped had died. He liked her. She was sulky and difficult, but so bright. What a waste of time it would be to kill her now. But if they couldn't control her on an orbiting space station like the Queen of the North, they couldn't control her anywhere. Ellie knew the secret, and she was going home with a live animal. She was as dangerous as a nuclear bomb. Gorman leaned over and pressed an icon over the hotel room bed so the curtains swung back to reveal a wall of glass and a 5-star view over London. The new golden turrets, plucked from the pages of the Arabian Nights, glowed seductively around him, reminding him of all the sightseeing he'd planned for the following day. He huffed irritably and turned his back on the view. At least we know where she's going, he said. She'll be heading over for that hole of a town she comes from, Barford, north, to see her family. Organize patrols across the south coast of England and get the police involved. Tell them she's got an animal with her. They'll be so scared of catching the animal plague that they'll be fighting each other for the biggest guns. You must kill them both before they reach home and she talks to anyone. Yes, sir. I mean destroy them, Gorman said. I want them pulped, pured, diced, and buried somewhere under a ton of concrete. Do you understand? Yes, sir. And do it quickly. I'm supposed to be on vacation. Call me back when you've got a sighting of her. Gorman pulled the comm from his ear and threw it on the bed. Then he shouted for his butler, Ralph, and ordered him to make tea. He had a feeling he was not going to be sleeping again that night or spending the day of sightseeing. You silly girl, Ellie, he said. You'll never make it. Ellie remembered every detail of the night Mal Gorman kidnapped her, and as she flew toward home, the memories ran like poison through her blood. She remembered that they'd eaten for dinner, and that her mother was wearing blue, that she'd yelled at her brother Micah because he messed up her hair, and that she didn't even say goodbye when she walked out of their fold-down apartment. She ran down the stairs because the elevator was broken, and she never saw her family again. It was the perfect night to kidnap a girl. The clouds rolled low over Barford North, smothering the light of the moon, and there was a ground-hugging Thames Valley mist that made the 100 of refugee towers look as if they were hovering over the ground like the tombstones in a spooky giant graveyard. There weren't many people out on the walkways that twisted around the towers like a tangle of concrete snakes, and eager to be with her friends, Ellie ran as fast as she could, half aware that something wasn't right, that there was something hiding in the shadows. But when Gorman's men melted out of them, dressed black as ninjas with slits for their eyes, she had no time to realize what was happening. Of their hands upon her, the bright sting of a needle in her neck, she remembered nothing. One moment she was wondering if she had enough money for a strawberry milkshake. The next her mind was sinking into a place like death. When she awoke, her head was aching and she felt sick, but she didn't understand what had happened to her for several minutes. Everything around her was white and hard and smelled of toilet cleaner. It was like waking up in a horrible heaven when you can't remember dying. But it wasn't until she put her hand to her head and realized her hair had been cut, and she began to feel fear. Her beautiful long dark hair was gone. Shocked out of this stupor, Ellie sat up with a jolt, her black eyes burning. She looked down at her body and saw her clothes were different too. Her new sneakers and jeans had been taken away, and she was dressed in a white suit with these horrible shoes that looked like socks with rubbery pads on the bottom. She yanked them off and threw them at the wall. She stood up and staggered to the window, and the shock of what she saw felt like boiling water on her skin. She could see the earth glowing in the distance, and it looked no bigger than a tennis ball. She blinked, and it was still there, small and insignificant. She rubbed her hands over her butchered hair. She turned around a couple of times, wondering what to do. Then she exploded, wept and yelled and banged on the door, demanding they let her out and give her back her clothes and let her go home. But nobody came. She banged with her hands until her hands were swollen and purple with bruising. Then she curled up on the hard bed, stricken by horror and confusion. I'm so sorry for the random stop, but I am stopping the video for so far, and I'll post a part 2 of chapter 1 sometime soon. Hopefully I'll get it done tonight and you can go ahead and watch it. But again, I'm very sorry. It's just my first time. I've had a lot of complications with editing and everything, so I just gonna post part 1, and then I'm gonna post part 2 of chapter 1 as soon as possible. I promise. Thank you so much.